David DeRoche is a professor at the National Defence University and a former director of Arabian Peninsula Affairs in the Office of the Secretary of Defence, and he's joining us live from Washington, D.C. Good to speak to you again, Mr. DeRoche. So that experience that we mentioned, just some off, sets Waltz apart from most in this Trump administration, doesn't it? Do you think that could have actually worked against him?
I don't have definitive proof, but I think it's possible. You have a bunch of people sitting around the table who don't have experience of government, don't have experience of moving things around, aircraft carriers and airplanes and stuff. In that environment where the leader wants to hear positive suggestions, I can see a dynamic arriving where Waltz was always the guy who had to say, well, we only have 9 aircraft carriers and 3 of them are in maintenance. And it's very easy to become portrayed or to be viewed as not being on board with the team agenda. But this is all speculative at this point.
Of course, but what could that loss of experience, if indeed his resignation, his departure is confirmed, what does that lack of experience mean for this Trump administration?
I think it'll be a net loss. I mean, Mike, not only did he work in the Pentagon for a number of years, but he also worked on the National Security Council as a relatively junior staffer. And what a lot of people overlook is that the National Security Council, only about 5% of what they do on a good day is advising the president. Most of it is coordinating the interagency. And that is very difficult work. It requires an experienced operator who has an understanding of the agencies, their equities, and the interagency process. And there's not a lot of people who have that level of experience from the ground level up, particularly in this administration. So if you lose a Mike Waltz, you take a pretty big hit in terms of the smooth running and coordination of policy.
We mentioned that Waltz voted against aid to Ukraine, but do you think that there were policy differences between Trump and Waltz?
It'd be hard to see what they were. I think that at the time, Trump was against Ukraine aid as well. And the issue was the lack of a strategy. It just seemed to be throwing money at a problem. I believe would be how Waltz would have characterized his vote on that. I think that there might be, a development, one who always points out the pragmatic considerations of policy when you've got people who see an ideological reason for considering. That person can become viewed as opposing the policy rather than trying to fine-tune it and adjust it to reality. And I think that that is a very real possibility, especially considering the relative lack of experience when one looks at some of Trump's senior advisors.
This is an important post, isn't it, especially at a time when the U.S. is trying to mediate in so many conflicts around the world. What will you be looking out for in how it's filled?
Well, I think our first question is governmental experience. And this is a real challenge because, a lot of the people around President Trump, you mentioned Laura Loomer, they view government experience as indoctrination into a hostile camp, a camp that's hostile to Trump. But the real talent here is, Trump doesn't take much advice from anybody. So the real challenge for the National Security Advisor is coordinating the interagency. And if you don't have a coordinated interagency, you get contradictory and ineffectual policy. So I'd be looking for somebody who has a real experience in consensus building and in interagency coordination. And unfortunately, that requires you to reach into what Laura Loomer would probably characterize as the deep state.
All right, that is David DeRoche joining us live from Washington, D.C. Thank you very much for your insights. We appreciate it.
It's an honor.